The great hall of the Galactic Council glowed with cold white light. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in curved rows, their strange faces filled with anger and disgust. The air was tense. The sound of whispering echoed like waves crashing against stone. In the center of the hall stood a single figure, a human man. His name was Captain Daniel Cross. Chains of blue light bound his hands and feet. His face was bruised, his clothes torn, but his eyes still burned with strength. Around him stood tall guards in silver armor, holding plasma spears that hummed quietly. Above him, the High Speaker, a tall alien with crystal skin, spoke in a sharp voice that carried across the room. "Daniel Cross," the speaker said coldly, "you are charged with crimes against the Galactic Order. You led the human fleet that destroyed the colonies of Kelros 5. You caused the death of millions. Do you have anything to say before your sentence is passed?" Daniel looked up, silent for a long moment. He could feel hundreds of eyes staring at him. He knew they all hated him. To them, he was a monster, a human who brought war into their peaceful stars. He opened his mouth, but no words came. What could he say? The truth wouldn't matter. The council had already decided. The speaker's voice grew louder. "Then your silence shall be taken as guilt. The punishment for your crimes." A deep sound filled the hall as the guards' weapons powered up. Daniel closed his eyes. He was ready. He had already accepted that this would be his end. His death. The words echoed like thunder. Then suddenly, a scream broke through the silence. "Don't kill my husband!" Every head in the chamber turned toward the sound. A young alien woman was running down the steps, pushing through the guards. Her skin shimmered blue under the council lights, and her silver hair glowed like moonlight. Her eyes, wide, glowing with tears, were fixed on Daniel. "Stop," she cried again, her voice shaking. "Please don't hurt him." The guards tried to stop her, but she fell to her knees beside Daniel, wrapping her arms around him as if her body could shield him from the world. The chamber gasped in shock. The High Speaker stood frozen. "Husband," the speaker repeated in disbelief. "What nonsense is this?" The woman looked up, her voice trembling but fierce. "He is not a monster. He saved me. He saved my people when no one else would. You cannot kill him." The aliens in the crowd began to whisper, their voices like rustling leaves. No one had ever seen something like this. A human and an alien, together, married. It was impossible, forbidden. Daniel could barely believe his eyes. Lyra. It was her, the one person he thought he had lost forever. She had found him. He whispered her name. "Lyra. How are you here?" She smiled through tears, her hands gripping his face. "I never stopped searching," she said softly. "They told me you were dead, but I knew they lied. I knew you were alive. I had to find you." The guards moved closer, their weapons raised. The speaker shouted, "Seize her!" "She has no right to be here." Lyra turned toward them, eyes blazing with courage. "If you kill him, you'll have to kill me first." The chamber fell into chaos. Some of the alien leaders stood up, arguing loudly. Others shouted for order. The High Speaker slammed his staff against the floor, sending a wave of sound through the air. But nothing could silence the image before them, a human and an alien woman kneeling together in chains and tears. Daniel felt something stir deep inside him. For the first time in years, he felt hope, not for himself, but for what she represented, for the truth that love could still exist between worlds that hated each other. The speaker pointed at them. "This is madness. Guards, remove them both." But one of the lower council members, an old alien with weary eyes, stood up and said quietly, "Wait, perhaps we should hear what she has to say." The hall went silent again. The speaker hesitated. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well, let her speak. But if she lies, both die." Lyra took a deep breath. Her hand still held Daniel's tightly. Her voice was soft at first, but each word grew stronger. "You call him a killer," she said. "But you don't know what really happened. You don't know what your own council did." Gasps spread through the chamber. The speaker's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tongue, girl." But Lyra didn't stop. He was not the destroyer of Kelros 5. He was the one who tried to save it. Daniel looked at her, shocked. He hadn't wanted her to get involved, but it was too late now. The truth was coming out. The speaker's staff struck the floor again. "Enough!" But the room was already filled with whispers, doubt spreading like fire through dry grass. Daniel lifted his head, meeting the eyes of the council. If she speaks, he said quietly, then let her finish. You owe her that much. And for the first time, the mighty Galactic Council hesitated. The story of a human, condemned, and the alien woman who dared to call him husband had just begun. The Galactic Council chamber was still echoing with Lyra's voice. Don't kill my husband! Those words had broken something ancient and cold inside that room. Even the guards hesitated. Daniel Cross stood frozen, staring at her. He hadn't seen Lyra in years. The last time he saw her was through the smoke of a burning sky, when his ship crashed on her homeworld, Thalara, the ocean planet. He had thought she was gone forever. Now she was here, trembling yet unbroken. Her voice carried through the chamber, clear and full of pain. You call him a killer, but I was there. I saw what happened. He saved us when no one else did. The High Speaker's crystal eyes narrowed. You dare speak before this council without permission? But she didn't stop. She looked straight into his gaze, refusing to bow. I will speak, even if it cost me my life. The hall fell quiet again. Everyone wanted to hear what she would say next. It began years earlier when Daniel's ship was shot down near the borders of alien space. His crew was gone. His weapons destroyed. He had landed on Thalara's endless blue shore, half dead and bleeding. When the locals found him, they wanted to kill him immediately. To them, humans were beasts from the stars. But Lyra, a young healer, had stepped between them. Don't hurt him, she had said back then. He's wounded, not dangerous. Her people didn't listen at first, but she carried Daniel to her hut near the cliffs. She treated his wounds using ocean herbs and glowing crystals from her sea. For days he said nothing, just stared at her with tired eyes. He didn't even understand her words. But kindness needs no language. Over time, Daniel began to heal. He learned her words slowly, clumsy but honest. He called her Lyra, and she called him Danelle. He built small tools for her village, water filters, light towers. When storms came, he protected their children. The villagers started to see him differently. For a short time, peace existed between human and alien. Then the council fleet arrived. Daniel's human distress signal had been picked up, and the Galactic Council came, supposedly to rescue survivors. But when they saw Thalara, they saw a new planet rich with resources. Daniel begged them not to harm it, but his pleas were ignored. When he tried to stand in their way, they branded him a traitor. The council bombed the surface, claiming it was infested with human weapons. Lyra watched her world burn. She saw Daniel captured, beaten, and taken away. She screamed his name as he disappeared into the sky. Her people blamed her for bringing him there. They called her cursed, unholy. Still, she never forgot him. Every night she prayed to the stars. Every morning she searched old transmissions, hoping for a sign that he was alive. Years passed, but her heart never gave up. Now, standing in the Grand Council Hall, she finally faced the same monsters who took everything from her. You said he destroyed Kelros 5, Lyra shouted, voice cracking. But I saw the truth. You destroyed it yourselves to hide your greed. You blamed the humans because it was easy. The council murmured in shock. The speaker banged his staff. Enough! Guards, but Daniel suddenly stepped forward, chains clinking. Let her speak. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. They deserve to hear what she has to say. The speaker hesitated. For a brief moment, even the guards seemed unsure. Lyra turned toward Daniel. You saved my people once, she said softly. Now it's my turn to save you. Tears filled her glowing eyes. I don't care what they call me. I don't care what it costs. I will not let them kill you for their lies. Daniel's heart tightened. He wanted to tell her to run, to live, but she wouldn't leave. Not again. The High Speaker finally spoke, voice low and dangerous. Then you will share his punishment. Gasps filled the hall. Lyra didn't flinch. If that's what it takes, so be it. Daniel tried to step between her and the guards, but the chains held him. Lyra, stop, he said. You can't, she smiled sadly. You once said humans fight for what they love. Now I understand. The guards surrounded them. But something strange was happening among the alien spectators. Whispers spreading, eyes softening. The sight of an alien woman standing beside a human man ready to die for him was shaking the hearts of those who'd always believed humans were soulless. For the first time, Daniel wasn't alone, and for the first time, the council's judgment no longer felt absolute. The speaker's staff glowed, ready to strike, but in that tense silence, a single voice from the crowd rose. Let them speak. Let the truth be heard. The chamber trembled with uncertainty. Daniel looked at Lyra and whispered, "Whatever happens next." "Thank you." Lyra squeezed his hand, her voice steady and full of love. "This is only the beginning." The Galactic Council chamber had never been this silent before. The hum of energy shields and the echo of breathing filled the cold air. The high speaker's crystal eyes flashed with anger as he looked at the human and the alien woman standing together in defiance. Daniel Cross stood tall, even in chains. Lyra held his arm tightly, refusing to let go. Around them, alien delegates whispered among themselves. Their disbelief was clear. Love between species was forbidden, even unimaginable, but what they saw in front of them felt real. The high speaker finally broke the silence. "So you accuse this council of hiding the truth?" he said, voice sharp like a blade. "You speak of lies and greed, but you offer no proof." Lyra lifted her chin. "The proof is written in your own records," she said. "Your own patrol logs show who gave the order to destroy Kelros 5. The speaker slammed his staff. "That record was erased long ago. You dare accuse us without evidence?" Daniel looked up, his calm voice cutting through the noise. "You can erase a file," he said slowly, "but you can't erase guilt." Those words spread through the chamber like a spark in dry wood. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. One old alien sitting near the edge of the circle looked away, his silver scales trembling. Daniel noticed him, Elder Varn. Daniel remembered that face from years ago. Varn had been the council commander who questioned him after the Kelros 5 tragedy. He was one of the few who seemed unsure even then. Daniel took a deep breath. "Elder Varn," he said, his voice echoing softly. "You were there. You know the truth." The hall went still again. All eyes turned to the old alien. Varn froze, his long fingers tightening around the edge of his seat. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said quickly. Daniel stepped closer, the energy chains glowing with each movement. "Yes, you do. You were in the room when the council voted to bomb Kelros 5. You warned them it was wrong. You told them civilians were still there, men, women, and children." Gasps rippled through the hall. The speaker's crystal staff began to glow red. "Enough, human. You speak lies to save your own neck." But Varn's face was pale. His eyes darted from the speaker to Daniel, then to Lyra. He could see the truth in her trembling yet fearless stance. He could see the love that made her risk everything. Something deep inside him cracked. His voice broke. "I told them the truth back then, but they didn't listen. They wanted to silence me too." The speaker turned in fury. "Varn!" But the elder's voice grew stronger now. "Yes, I was there. The order came from this council itself. It was no human attack, it was an experiment gone wrong. They tried to control human minds with energy fields, and when it failed, they destroyed the planet to hide their mistake." The crowd exploded in noise. Some delegates shouted in shock, others demanded silence. The guards looked at one another, unsure whether to attack or protect. Daniel felt his heart pounding. Lyra's eyes widened, tears welling as she whispered, "So it was true." The speaker roared, his voice shaking the glass walls. "Lies, he's an old fool poisoned by human deceit." Varn turned toward Daniel. "They will kill us all to keep this secret," he said. "You must escape." Daniel looked around. The guards were advancing again, weapons glowing. The speaker raised his staff high, a storm of light gathering at its tip. "Silence them," he ordered. Before the blast could fire, a deep rumble shook the chamber. The lights flickered. The walls trembled. Somewhere far below, explosions echoed. A metallic voice crackled through the intercom. "Rebel ships detected above the council dome. Security shields failing." Panic filled the hall. Delegates ran. Guards shouted orders and alarms wailed. Daniel turned to Lyra. "We have to move now." She nodded, gripping his hand tight. The chains around his wrists flickered and went dark. The power grid was failing. He tore them free. Varn stepped closer, slipping a small device into Daniel's hand. "Go to the lower hangar," he said. "There's an old transport ship. Take it and run. Show the galaxy the truth." Daniel hesitated. "Come with us," the elder shook his head. "No, my place is here. I will speak until they silence me for good." Daniel gave a short nod. He knew what that meant. "Thank you," he said. Varn smiled faintly. "Maybe humans aren't the monsters we thought they were." The blast doors opened as Daniel and Lyra ran into the smoke-filled corridor. Behind them, the council hall filled with shouting and laser fire. As they escaped into the rising chaos, Lyra looked at Daniel and whispered, "Now they know the truth." Daniel's jaw tightened. "No," he said. "They've only seen the beginning of it. The Council's lies were crumbling, and the galaxy was about to witness the storm that would follow. Smoke drifted through the shining halls of the Galactic Council dome. Sirens howled, red lights flashed, and the once proud chamber of order was now chaos. Daniel and Lyra ran through the curved corridors, their footsteps echoing on the crystal floors. Behind them, explosions rocked the structure, shaking dust from the ceiling. Lyra's heart raced, but she didn't slow down. She held Daniel's hand tightly as he led her through the maze of tunnels. For the first time in years, he was free. No chains, no guards, no walls. But freedom came with a price. "They'll come after us," she said, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded, his jaw set. "I know. That's why we can't stop." They reached a service door and slipped inside a small maintenance passage. It smelled of metal and oil. Faint blue lights blinked above them. Daniel stopped to catch his breath, pressing his hand against the cold wall. "Elder Varn's gone," he said quietly. "He sacrificed himself to tell the truth. The Council won't forgive that." Lyra looked down. "He was brave," she whispered. "Braver than most of his kind." Daniel turned to her, his expression softening. "You were brave too. You came here knowing you could die." Her lips curved in a weak smile. "Love makes you do foolish things." He wanted to reply, but before he could, heavy boots echoed from behind them. Guards. Daniel grabbed Lyra's arm and ran again. They burst into a wide corridor filled with smoke. At the far end, they saw a glass wall showing the city outside, towering spires and flying ships glittering under a violet sky. But between them and escape stood 6 armored soldiers, weapons raised. "Stop right there," one shouted. Daniel raised his hand slowly, shielding Lyra behind him. "She's not part of this." "Let her go," the lead guard laughed. "You think the Council spares traitors?" Suddenly, a sharp blast echoed from above. One of the guards dropped, hit by a blue plasma shot. From the balcony, a figure in dark armor leaped down. "Commander Rail, leader of the rebel faction." "Captain Cross," Rail called. "We've come for you." Daniel stared in disbelief. "Rail, you're alive?" "Barely," the alien commander said, helping him up. "The galaxy heard whispers of your trial. We couldn't let the last good human die for their lies." Rail handed Daniel a blaster. "We have a ship waiting in the hangar. Move." They fought their way through narrow corridors. Smoke and laser fire filled the air. Daniel moved like the soldier he once was, fast, precise, determined. Lyra followed close behind, clutching a small data crystal Rail had given her. "What's this?" she shouted over the noise. "The Council's records," Rail said. "Proof that they ordered the destruction of Kelros 5. Varn sent it before they silenced him." Daniel's eyes burned with fury. "Then we can show the galaxy what really happened." Rail nodded. "If we survive." They reached the hangar, a vast chamber full of ships and flashing alarms. A transport craft waited at the far end, its engines glowing. But standing in their way was a group of elite guards led by High Marshal Kareth, the Council's enforcer. Kareth's voice boomed across the hangar. "You cannot run from justice, human. You were born from chaos. You will die in it." Daniel raised his blaster. "Funny," he said, eyes cold. "That's exactly what tyrants say before they fall." The firefight erupted. Blasts of blue and red light filled the hangar. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Daniel and Rail covered each other while Lyra ducked behind a crate, clutching the data crystal to her chest. A beam hit near her, sending her sprawling. Daniel rushed to her side. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," she gasped. "But they're closing in." Rail threw a smoke grenade. "Go, get to the ship." They ran through the haze, shots flying past them. Daniel fired back, hitting a guard's weapon. Lyra stumbled, and he caught her just before she fell. They reached the ramp of the transport, gasping for breath. "Get us out of here." Rail shouted to the pilot. Engines roared. The ship lifted, flames bursting beneath it. Kareth fired one last shot. It grazed Daniel's arm, but he ignored the pain. As the ship blasted through the hangar shield and into the purple sky, the city below shrank to a maze of fire and glass. Inside the ship, Daniel leaned back, breathing hard. Lyra sat beside him, holding his wounded arm gently. "You're bleeding," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Nothing new for me." Rail handed Daniel the small data crystal. "Varn died to send this. If the galaxy sees it, everything changes." Daniel looked out at the stars through the window. Then that's what we'll do. We'll make them see. Lyra placed her hand over his. And when they know the truth? He turned to her, his eyes calm but fierce. Then the galaxy will finally understand what humans are capable of. Mercy, love, and justice. Below them, the great city burned like a dying star. Above them, endless darkness waited. The war for truth had just begun. The transport ship roared through the violet sky, chased by flashes of red light. Council fighters swarmed behind it, firing plasma bolts that streaked across the clouds like lightning. Inside the ship, alarms screamed. "Shields are down to 40%, shouted Rael from the cockpit. Daniel gripped the metal railing, staring out the window at the chaos behind them. "Keep us steady. We just need to reach the outer rings." Lyra sat beside him, holding tight to the seat. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. The stars outside looked close, yet every second felt like an eternity. A plasma bolt struck the rear engine, shaking the entire craft. Sparks flew and the lights flickered. Rael cursed under his breath. "They've locked onto us. We can't outrun them." Daniel's mind raced. He'd escaped countless battles before, but never one like this. Never with someone he loved beside him. He looked at Lyra, who still clutched the data crystal against her heart. That tiny object carried the truth that could bring down the Galactic Council itself. "We can't let them take this," he said quietly. "If they catch us, everything Varn died for will be lost." Lyra nodded, her voice calm. "Then we don't let them catch us." Daniel smiled faintly. Even now, under fire, she was fearless. The ship dived sharply, descending into the cloud layers of Varen's upper atmosphere. Lightning flashed all around them, painting the cockpit in ghostly light. The storm screamed, but it also gave them cover. Rael turned to Daniel. "We can lose them in the storm, but our nav systems will fry." "Do it," Daniel ordered. Better blind than dead. The transport plunged into the storm. Bolts of plasma missed them by inches as thunder rolled through the skies. The pursuing fighters hesitated. Some turned back, afraid of the electrical chaos. Inside, the ship shook violently. Daniel held on to Lyra, keeping her steady as they bounced through the storm's fury. "Stay with me," he said, his voice low but strong. "I'm not leaving you," she whispered back. After what felt like forever, the sensors went quiet. The chasing ships were gone. Rael exhaled deeply. "They lost us," he said, slumping back in his seat. For now, the crew was silent for a moment. Only the hum of the engines filled the air. Daniel looked at the viewport where the storm began to fade into calm skies. The stars returned, endless and cold. "Set course for the outer belt," he said. "We'll hide there until we can send the data." Rael nodded. "There's an old outpost on Krone's moon. The rebels use it as a safe house. We'll make repairs there." Hours later, the ship drifted above a desolate gray moon. Its surface was scarred and lifeless. The outpost was hidden beneath the rocks, invisible to scanners. As they landed, Daniel felt his heart finally slow. He and Lyra stepped out into the thin air, watching the horizon glow with distant starlight. For the first time since their escape, silence felt like peace. Lyra turned to him. "Do you think they'll come after us again?" Daniel nodded. "They'll never stop. Not until they silence us." She looked down at the data crystal in her hand. "Then we make sure the galaxy hears us first." Rael joined them, carrying a holoprojector. "This contains the proof," he said. "Orders signed by the High Speaker himself. Once we broadcast this across the networks, the Council's power will fall." Daniel stared at the small device. "Then let's show them what truth looks like." But before he could activate it, the ground beneath them shook. The outpost alarms began to wail. Rael's face went pale. "They found us," he whispered. "Council dropships incoming." Daniel's heart pounded. "How?" Lyra looked toward the sky, where distant lights began to pierce the darkness. "They must have tracked the data signal," she said. The roar of engines filled the air as ships descended, surrounding the outpost. Dozens of armored soldiers poured out, weapons raised. Rael turned to Daniel. "We can't fight them all." Daniel's voice was calm but hard. "Then we make sure they don't take us alive." He grabbed Lyra's hand and looked at her. "No matter what happens, keep that crystal safe." She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Not without you." The soldiers advanced, shouting commands. Daniel aimed his blaster and took position beside Rael. Lyra crouched behind a fallen beam, clutching the crystal tightly. The first shots rang out. Blue plasma streaked through the air. Daniel fired back, his movements sharp and precise. Every blast he returned was for Varn, for the truth, for every life lost to the Council's greed. Rael shouted, "We can't hold them much longer." Daniel's gaze fell on a small transport skimmer nearby. He made a split-second decision. "Get Lyra on that ship!" he yelled. "Now!" Rael nodded and grabbed Lyra, pulling her toward the skimmer. "No," she cried, trying to reach Daniel. "I'm not leaving you." Daniel fired one last burst before turning to her. "You have to, Lyra. You're the only one who can tell them the truth." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Then promise me you'll come back." He smiled faintly even as the battle raged around him. "I'll find you." "I swear it." As the skimmer lifted off, Daniel turned back toward the approaching soldiers, blaster in hand. The sky above the moon burned with ships and smoke, and though he stood alone, he felt no fear because somewhere out there, the woman he loved carried the truth that could set an entire galaxy free. The small skimmer sliced through the dark space above Kron's moon, its engines barely whispering. Inside, Lyra sat in silence, her hands gripping the glowing data crystal so tightly it hurt. Below her, explosions painted the moon's surface with red light. She could still hear Daniel's last words echoing in her mind. "You're the only one who can tell them the truth." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she refused to look back. The ship trembled as the shock wave from the battle below reached it. She whispered to herself, "Please, Daniel. Survive." The pilot, a rebel named Tarek, glanced at her. "Hold on, we're heading for deep space. Once we hit the dark zone, they won't find us." Lyra nodded faintly. She turned her gaze to the stars, the endless black scattered with light. Somewhere out there, Daniel was still fighting, or dying for her. Down below, Daniel stood amid the smoke and ruins. His blaster was empty, his armor scorched, but he was still standing. The Council soldiers had fallen back temporarily, regrouping at the ridge. He knew they'd return in minutes. He leaned against the wreck of the outpost, breathing hard. His body screamed in pain, but his heart burned like fire. Somewhere above, Lyra was alive, and that was enough. Rael crawled over the debris, clutching his shoulder where he'd been hit. "They're not stopping," he said. "We've got 5 minutes, maybe less." Daniel loaded his last energy cell into the blaster. "Then we make those 5 minutes count," Rael chuckled weakly. "Humans are always dramatic," Daniel smirked. "We like to leave an impression." Overhead, the Council ships began to descend again. Spotlights cut through the smoke, searching for survivors. But before they could fire, something massive shimmered in orbit, a shadow blotting out the stars. Rael squinted upward. "Is that—" Daniel's heart stopped for a second, then leapt. "It's the rebel fleet." Dozens of ships appeared above the moon, engines blazing. The Rebel Alliance, made up of aliens from across the galaxy who had once fought beside humans, had come to fight back. From the largest ship, a deep voice broadcast across the comms. "This is Commander Elon of the Free Systems. To all Council forces, stand down or face justice." The Council's reply came fast and furious. "You dare attack the Galactic Council? You'll be destroyed." Daniel looked up at the lights of battle starting above the clouds. The rebels were outnumbered, but not outmatched. Rael grinned despite his wound. "Looks like the storm's finally here," Daniel nodded. "And it's not stopping until truth wins." Far away, in a hidden communications station orbiting an abandoned asteroid, Lyra stood before a holographic console. The rebel pilot Tarek connected the data crystal into the core. The room glowed blue with light as files appeared. Images, reports, voice logs. All proof of the Council's crimes. "This is it," said Tarek. "Once we transmit, there's no going back. Every world in the galaxy will see it." Lyra hesitated. Her hands hovered over the controls. "If we do this, Daniel becomes their ultimate target." Tarek gave her a firm look. "He already is. But if we don't do it, everything he fought for dies." She closed her eyes. The image of Daniel, tired, brave, and still smiling through the smoke, flashed in her mind. She pressed the command. "Transmit." The data spread like wildfire through the networks. Across star systems, screens lit up with footage of council meetings, orders signed by the High Speaker, and the voice of Elder Varn exposing the truth. On countless worlds, beings stopped what they were doing. Workers, soldiers, families, everyone watched in silence. The truth was out. The Galactic Council's image shattered overnight. Protests erupted on capital planets. Entire fleets refused new orders. And on Kron's moon, Daniel saw the shift happen live through his helmet feed. The council soldiers hesitated mid-attack as the broadcast played on their visors. Their leader shouted for them to ignore it, but doubt had already taken root. Rael looked at Daniel, smiling through the blood on his face. You did it. She did it. Daniel stared at the sky where explosions between rebel and council ships painted the darkness in orange fire. No, he said softly. We did it. Moments later, the rebel dropship descended, its landing lights piercing through the haze. Rael waved a flare. The hatch opened and familiar figures rushed out. Rebels wearing insignias Daniel thought he'd never see again. A soldier saluted. Captain Cross, the galaxy's talking about you. You're not just a fugitive anymore, you're a symbol. Daniel shook his head, glancing at the fire-scarred battlefield. I'm just a man who got tired of lies. As they boarded the dropship, he looked once more at the horizon where Lyra's skimmer had vanished hours ago. Hold on, Lyra, he whispered. The storm's here. I'm coming for you. In the days that followed, rebellion spread like a pulse across the galaxy. Old enemies became allies. Species that had never spoken to each other began to unite. And through it all, one message burned across every world. He was condemned at the Galactic Council, until a young alien woman screamed, "Don't kill my husband." That scream had become the cry of a galaxy rising from fear to freedom, but for Daniel Cross and Lyra of Thalara, their fight was not over yet. The council still lived, and it would not fall quietly. The storm had only just begun. The stars above Krone's moon burned brighter than ever. The war that began as whispers had turned into a storm sweeping across the galaxy. Every news channel, every holoscreen, every outpost replayed the same images. The truth of the Galactic Council's lies and the courage of the human who had stood against them. But Daniel Cross wasn't celebrating. He sat in the medbay of a rebel ship, his arm bandaged, staring out the viewport at the glowing stars. The war wasn't over yet. The council still stood, wounded, yes, but not destroyed. Rael entered, his armor dented and his face lined with exhaustion. They've called for an emergency broadcast from the capital, he said. The high speaker is denying everything. He's calling the evidence human manipulation. Daniel gave a humorless smile. Of course he is, Rael leaned forward. The galaxy believes you now, Captain. You should speak. They need to see your face, Daniel hesitated. Not without her. Rael's eyes softened. We picked up a signal an hour ago. A skimmer in deep space sent a short burst. Thalaran frequency. It's her, Daniel. Lyra's alive. Daniel stood so fast his chair fell over. Where? Heading toward the capital, Rael said. She's trying to reach the council chamber. I think she plans to face them herself. Daniel's chest tightened. Alone, she'll be killed. Rael handed him a blaster. Then you'd better hurry. The rebel fleet descended upon the galactic capital, now surrounded by chaos. The once shining towers of peace were scarred by fire. Crowds filled the streets chanting for truth. Banners of rebellion waved beside shattered statues of the council's leaders. Inside the council hall, the same place where Daniel was once condemned, Lyra stood before the council again. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. You can't silence the galaxy anymore, she said. Your crimes are known. The people will not obey you. The high speaker slammed his staff against the floor. You dare bring chaos to the stars? You've corrupted minds with human lies. Lyra's eyes filled with tears but not fear. No, you corrupted them with your greed. The speaker raised his glowing staff, its power building. Then let the galaxy see the price of treason. Before the strike could fall, the great doors burst open. Smoke poured in, followed by blinding light. Daniel Cross stepped through. He was limping, covered in burns, but his eyes burned with determination. The crowd gasped. The speaker's hand froze mid-air. Daniel's voice rang through the hall. You wanted a trial? Let's have one. Before the whole galaxy. Cameras turned automatically toward him. The hall's broadcasting systems were still live, sending the scene to every corner of known space. Millions watched as the condemned human faced the council once again. The speaker sneered. You think anyone will believe you, human? You are nothing. Daniel took a slow step forward. Nothing? He gestured to the people watching from the balconies to the crowd outside. Then why are they here? Why are they chanting your lies away? He turned toward the cameras. The council told you humans were monsters. They told you we destroyed worlds. But look at me. Look at her. He motioned toward Lyra. We didn't come here to rule you. We came here to prove that truth and love are stronger than fear. The speaker shouted, "Enough!" and unleashed a beam of white energy toward Daniel. Lyra screamed, running toward him. But before the beam could strike, a bright blue field shimmered around Daniel. The rebel fleet had locked their defense network on him from orbit. The blast scattered into light. Rael's voice boomed through the hall speakers. The free systems stand with Captain Cross. The walls shook as rebel banners projected across the chamber. The guards lowered their weapons, some throwing them aside. Daniel stared at the speaker. "It's over." The old alien trembled, fury and fear twisting his face. "You think you've won?" "The council will rise again." Daniel raised his blaster, but he didn't fire. He simply said, "No, the galaxy will rise instead." He tossed the blaster aside and turned to the crowd. "No more lies. No more chains. We build something new, together." The crowd erupted. Across the galaxy, species that once hated each other cheered as one. The speaker was dragged away, his power broken. Daniel turned toward Lyra. She was crying, her hands trembling. "You made it," she whispered. He smiled, stepping closer. "You saved me first." She threw her arms around him, holding him as if she'd never let go again. Around them, the chamber filled with shouts of hope. Rael approached, watching with a small grin. "Seems the galaxy found its heart again," he said. Daniel looked at the vast hall around them, the same place where he was once condemned, now filled with unity. "Not just its heart," he said softly. "It's humanity." Days later, peace treaties spread across the systems. The Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place rose the Alliance of Free Worlds, led not by fear, but by cooperation. And in the archives of history, one event was remembered above all others. The moment an alien woman screamed, "Don't kill my husband," and changed the fate of 1,000 stars. Daniel and Lyra returned to the blue oceans of Thalara, where waves met silver sands. They stood together at sunset, hand in hand. "What now?" Lyra asked gently. Daniel smiled at the horizon. "Now we build." The wind carried their laughter over the sea as the stars above shimmered, no longer cold and distant, but alive with hope.